You're watching Maverick Season 2, powered by Lenovo.
Thank you so much to all of you for coming today. Mudassar, Rameshwar, Dinesh, thank you so much. Before we get into the discussion, I would love if you could tell us what you do, about your startups.
Sure. Thanks, Shraddha, for having us. Just a quick introduction. I'm Mudassar, one of the founders at EasyHaul. We are a road freight platform operating across Southeast Asia and India, formed in 2016. And as of today, we are present in 5 countries and growing quite well. So when I say digital road platform, what we do is essentially when a company needs to request for a truck for their intercity requirements, traditionally what they would do is pick up the phone and call their Sandhu and Son transporter or their broker, like, bhaiya, truck hai kya? Right? And that had a lot of issues, right? The first issue was scale. If they wanted 10, 15 trucks, Sandhu and Son probably cannot cater to that demand. Number 2, there's a lack of professionalism in this industry. So if he wants to find out where the truck is, nobody's going to pick up his call. Yes. And thirdly, he can get no analytics, of course, right, on his movements. So we solve that problem by getting thousands of trucks on our platform. So we are the modern day digital brokers, if you may call it that, right? So when a company, let's say it's a Coca-Cola or Pidilite, wants trucks, they can book those trucks through our platform. And then we execute those orders using the vehicles that have signed up on our platform, right? The 3 problems we solve are, number 1, scale. So we can cater to 1 truck or 50 trucks, doesn't matter. Number 2 is professionalism. We have a full-fledged team at the back end, 24/7, answering any questions they have. And number 3 is analytics. So not only do we provide the trucks, a real value add comes from telling them at the end of the month that, hey, your truck supplied on these routes, this is the number of times it stopped, maybe you can try a different truck type, etc. Right? So we provide that value-added service. So we've taken a very old product, which is trucking, and kind of repackaged it and brought it into the 21st century.
Was it easy to get all these truckers to your platform?
Honestly, the answer to that is yes. Getting the supply on our platform, the trucks, is the easy part because they don't pay any licensing fee to us. They don't pay any service fee. It's free to join. Oh. We only charge them when they do a job for us, right? So we pay them when there's a job. So for them, it's kind of a no-brainer to join us, and we essentially become a marketing channel for them. They can continue doing their existing business, and the value add we provide to them is we bring them additional business, which is optional again for them. There's no force. Yeah. So it's easy to get the supply. The demand, of course, is a little harder because most of these companies are very used to working in their traditional mechanisms, and we're trying to change that and, request them to give us an opportunity.
But at the same time, because of the seamlessness and the transparency that you bring for them, yes. I'm sure it would be hard, but also many would be finding it very
It was hard in the first few months as any startup when you're breaking out, but now we have thousands of clients and it's easier to scale once you've done the first 1-2 years of the hardship. Now that we're in 5 countries, a company in Malaysia has recommended us to their counterpart in India and so on, right? So the hard part is the first couple of years, but once you get through that, then it's a little easier.
Rameshwar.
We basically fuse nanotechnology and fabric technology together. It sounds very complex, but it's very simple. For example, the T-shirt which I am wearing, it's a Supima cotton, so which is very rare cotton, a very soft cotton. On that we use a nanotechnology like anti-stain and anti-odor. What it does is basically it ensures that this T-shirt remains clean for a very long time because stains are not able to stick to it very easily. And obviously, like all the men stink, so the anti-odor ensures that we don't stink, and that to the next day of Valentine's Day, that matters a lot. So we have fused technology and in the sense fabric and chemtech to ensure that we deliver to customers something very valuable. Because if you see apparel industry, primarily it has been driven by design, fit, style and quality. We are adding a 5th element on that, which is technology, which ensures that the regular cleaning cycles of your clothes reduces a lot. You don't need to worry for putting a perfume. Let's say you are traveling in a hot Mumbai weather and you are sweating badly. The anti-odor and the wicking basically ensures that your T-shirt or shirt remains dry, doesn't stink. So we are doing clothes or apparels 2.0. Is there anyone in the world who is doing this? Yes, there is a brand called Uniqlo from Japan which does this.
Oh, I love that brand.
Yeah. Yes. So what we are doing is, so for the everyday wear, we are getting this tech in the apparels and trying it to give it to consumers at a very affordable price. So we do direct to consumers using our website. And now we are planning to launch our distribution across Mintras, Flipkarts, and also go the other traditional distribution channel, so that everyone in India can try, test such new types of clothes.
Did you find it hard to convince people about this?
It was very hard to convince, because it's sort of a category creation, like
Yeah.
you move from a Ford to Tesla, still does the same purpose. So when you do such a transition, the use case remains the same, like we still wear clothes to protect ourselves from the externalities and to cover ourselves, which even the Ford and Tesla comparison is very relevant for that. So what we do is we do something more on top of that. If you wear our clothes, we ensure that you don't need to worry for any external casualties, like let's say it's a hot weather, it's a cold climate, you are stinking or something, we take care of you. So this is what we're trying to do, sort of building zero maintenance clothes. And the tough part is, how do you communicate these benefits to the consumer? Because for example, like I'll stick to just anti-odor, because a big problem in India because of the humidity and hot weather. When you say anti-odor, it's like it's not a perfume or a deo that acts very instantly. Anti-odor ensures that when you wear this cloth the next day, it won't stink. So you can reuse the cloth again and again. How do you tell it to the consumer? It's a very tough task, because we have to find out really great creative people, we have to make really great content, we have to use the right communication channels to ensure that everyone understands it, so that they don't use it like a toy. The problem is the clothes should not be compared like a toy and used like a toy. The market needs a lot of education, because if you see Chennai and all the places where the water is drying out, there is no need to clean your clothes every day. So if you can give some sort of a cloth which even a person can wear it even for the second time, that saves twice the amount of water. So that's a huge saving of water. So will we move there? Yes. The challenge is, being a category creator in apparels, you need money to educate people, you need to innovate in the supply chain, because supply chain is one of the toughest things we have cracked. Very few people did this in the supply chain before us, but to ensure that you stick to the promise to the consumer, you get that required wash cycles, you ensure quality is delivered, because for example, it's sort of a technology applied on the very soft fabric. So the hand feel of the fabric changes. How do you ensure that the hand feel, breathability, touch and all that of the fabric doesn't change, despite of you using some chemical coating on it or application on it? It's a big challenge.
Dinesh, please tell us.
I'm from Confirm Ticket. Anyway, first of all, thanks for inviting me. And Confirm Ticket is a train ticket discovery and booking platform. It's a 5-year-old company, and we are the first ones to launch waitlist prediction for the Indian audience. Like, it's into train ticketing space, where users coming onto the platform, they discover train tickets with all the possible ways. So we're using waitlist prediction, using alternates.
This is for trains?
It's for trains, predominantly for trains. Like, so we launched in 2015 with one single feature of waitlist prediction, so that users will know like which train has high chance of confirmation to book. And then we launched alternative options. Like, what it does is, like, it tries to break your journey. So 40% of the tickets are booked on waitlist, right? So that's a massive problem. And once we launched that waitlist prediction feature, we were, both of us, me and Sripad, we were just part-time, and this huge user base, like they were just rushing onto the platform. So that helped us just get on this, and that's how it started. And now we have like 4 million monthly active users using the platform, and we directly partner with the railways to book train tickets on the platform.
So you're working with the Ministry of Railways?
We are working with IRCTC in
IRCTC.
between, so which provides us the APIs to book train tickets also. So we almost sell like 25,000 seats a day. That's roughly around 1.5 to 2 crores a day, and it was tough start at the beginning, because everybody was like, you cannot make money out of this thing and all, but cracking user base is not a challenge for us actually. I mean, that's a different challenge for everyone. Like, distribution is a biggest challenge for everyone, but for us, distribution just came in, like organic growth we had pretty good. Business model innovation is an important challenge for us. Like, we tried multiple things. How do we make money out of these users and all? Finally, The booking is what worked out. Like users are willing to pay more if you give a value-added service. So that's how it all started.
So for your business, like today, if there are 4 million active users, then tomorrow the growth would be if you own the user base, right? Like a large user base.
So the train market is pretty huge, like almost like 6 times bigger than airline passenger market, and people travel a lot. It's like daily 20 lakh passengers travel, daily 2 million, I would say. Like, and it's huge. I mean, the market is huge. Like if you've seen, people in this business are lesser as of now, but we were considered might be an underdogs in this travel space. Once IRCTC went for an IPO, I think you would have seen like how they valued before IPO and how it is valued after this thing. It's a large market, and you have every transacting users. You can actually tap into every transacting users using this.
How did you get the investors? What did you do?
So look, we are in the B2B space, and our journey has been, I think, typical for most entrepreneurs who get to this point. So you start with an idea, right? And what do you do with the idea? You need to implement it, and to implement it, you need capital, right? Yeah. It's very tough for somebody to give you money for an idea. So you need to have that conviction that I'm going to use my own money to at least get this idea off the ground, right? So we're talking about bootstrapping the company.
You did that?
Yes. So I have 2 partners, 3 of us. The first round of capital came from us, right? So we were all from the logistics background. We had some, we were working in multinational companies, and we quit and said, let's do it on our own, and we'll put in our own capital, right? So the bootstrapping allowed us to build the MVP. So at least something that we can then take to an investor and say, look, this is our background, and this is the idea, and this is what the product is going to look like, right? It's for any budding entrepreneur out there, it's very tough to fund ideas, right? Ideas are good, especially for first-time entrepreneurs. Yes. If you've been there, done that, if you've done 2, 3 startup exits, then people have more faith in you, and rightly so, right? Yeah. If you're a first-time entrepreneur, you need to show them something for them to convince you. So I think bootstrapping with your own money is quite important. It also signals to the investor that you're serious about it, that you've put, your money where the mouth is, and then you're prepared to put in the grind. So along with putting our own money, we also said we can't take any salary for a year at least, right? Because if you're going to draw a salary from that same money, it kind of beats the purpose, right? So you've got to take that risk to kind of go without an income.
How was your mindset at that time? Were you ready, happy, excited, or were you cautious?
It's always
stressed?
A mixed emotion, right? Yeah. As any entrepreneur will tell you, you go through a plethora of emotions in that first one. You actually even up to now, right? So some days you're euphoric, and the next day you're like, why did I do this? And in my case, I was married. I had my first child, so it was a little risky to kind of leave behind a good job and go down this path, but the family was supportive. But it is an emotional roller coaster, right? So
you didn't take salary for the first 1 year?
Yeah, 1 year we didn't, all 3 of us. And you have to make that sacrifice, especially if you put in your own money. It's kind of pointless to kind of draw from the same pot. It makes no sense. So we launched in Malaysia first. Usually companies start on a big market, go to small markets. We did the opposite. We started in a small market because I was already working there, and we knew the market, we knew the clients, so we thought it's easier. So we did that for 6 months, got our first 5 to 10 clients, and said, okay, there's somebody willing to pay for this service, right? And that's when we said we need to raise next round of funding, the angel round, seed round, right? Yeah. So seed round, we raised 800,000 US, and this came from angel investors. Now, these were people we know from our network. So they were like VPs and CEOs and logistics companies, and who we knew from back in the day, right? So the other tip I have for entrepreneurs is that it helps if you have some background in that industry. Right? The reason we got that seed round was these people knew us, right? They knew that we have been in that seat and we know what it is to run a logistics business, right? So we raised 800K from about 6 investors on a seed round. How did we raise it? We used convertible notes. Again, it's a very popular mechanism to raise funding because at that point, you're too young to draw a valuation on your company. Yeah. So the convertible notes allows you to postpone the valuation discussion to a later point. So that 800K allowed us to expand in Malaysia. We ran for another 1 year, and then we needed to raise our Series A. We reached out to both VCs and strategic, right? Now, again, given that we're in the B2B space, it actually makes sense to have a strategic investor as opposed to a VC, right? Because strategic investor gives you money, but they also give you access to markets, they give you access to tech, access to clients, etc. Right? So our strategic investor is one of the largest companies in the world, and they put in $5 million US. But anyway, so they put in $5 million, and we expanded from Malaysia to our second country.
So Mudassar, there, they put in money because they saw the 1 year of traction
Correct.
that you had already
Correct.
achieved.
Right.
So you had 10 paying customers
Right.
by then.
No, we had a lot more. So the 10 paying customers was when we went to angel investors,
Yeah.
the seed round. Then after that, we grew across Malaysia, and we probably became the second largest trucking company, if you may
In 1
say
year.
that, in 1 year in
Wow.
Malaysia.
Yeah.
Right? So at that point, when you're going for a Series A, you need serious traction, right?
Yeah.
It's, especially in the market the last couple of years, it's tough to get funded unless you're showing some really good traction. That's number one. And number two, ideally your cap table also should be relatively clean so they don't get scared on, who's the investor and whatnot, right? So our cap table had people from the industry.
Yeah.
So they saw that, okay, these guys know what they're doing because some people have put faith in them, right? So we had good traction, right? So we had the, like I said, second largest truck fleet in Malaysia by then. We had paying clients. We had clients like, Coca-Cola, etc., who are named brands, right? So that again gives confidence to the investor. So what does the investor look at, right? He looks at traction, of course. They will look at your tech. I mean, you need to have something to show there's a tech platform, right? And number three, obviously the founders and the senior management team. We were from the industry, and we had a track record in the industry, so that really helped us.
All of you are from logistics background, but not, I would say, coders yourselves, right? So did you build a team for that, or did you get it done through freelancers or
Great
outsourced?
question, Shraddha. So we actually faced some pessimism from investors because we weren't from a tech background. So again, my advice is try to have at least one tech co-founder. It really helps. So we all three were non-tech guys, right? So that took
But
some.
you're doing so well.
Yeah, in hindsight, yes. But again, it wasn't easy to raise the round because we didn't have that. Look, I'm telling you the happy scenarios, right? What I haven't told you is that we knocked on 50 other doors and had 49 rejections, right? So, and you have those experiences where, one guy told us you will never make it, the other guy told us you're in the wrong business, why don't you try this, right? But that's when you have to have conviction in ideas. And, it's like being an entrepreneur 3 years out is like an iceberg, right? What you see about the surface is all the happy stories. So what I'm telling you is the happy scenario of the strategic investing in us and buying into our vision, but there was 40 other guys who did not, right? But you have to go through that pain of, and have the resilience also. It's going to happen. It's when you go down a funding route, it's not easy, right? You need to have a thick skin. You're going to have a lot of naysayers. They're going to tell you it's not going to work. Somebody is going to tell you change your model.
So people told you that it's
they
not
did,
going to.
right? I mean, when we closed our Series B, I actually thought of writing to that guy who told us it'll never work, but then I was like, let it go. I mean,
Forgive and move on.
Forgive and move on. Yeah, so we hired somebody because we saw that gap. So we hired a CTO from the industry and very credible background. So that kind of covered us, where if you have nobody, then it's really tough to get funded, right? So ideal scenario is one of you be tech. If not, then at least get somebody in the senior management, a CTO or architect who's from a tech background.
So you built it in-house from day
In-house.
one.
Yeah. We did use some outsourced dev, but that was at the junior coder level for the first 6 months, and then we brought that in-house. So our tech team now is completely in-house.
How difficult was it for you, because you were creating a whole new category, you are creating a whole new category, to get people convinced and to get angel investors?
It was very, very tough to convince people on something new. And on top of that, the way by which we raised money, which is sort of a convertible debt, and this I'm saying 2.5 years back, was really tough. It was impossible to convince a lot of people, because if you convince someone that okay, this will work, then the catch is this is the instrument in which we are raising money, because in form of a CCD there is no valuation assigned to that round. It's assigned to the future or to some future round raise. So in that ways, I will say that. So the initial round started because my previous company's CFO and one of my friends started by putting a small money. So saying that we first bootstrapped it, did the R&D, then when we were about to launch the product, which is the jeans category, which I am wearing right now, then these two guys came in. but that was a very small check. And being an inventory-driven business, in the initial R&D days, you lose out money. So then we went out and talked with a lot of angels groups and all. So we have talked with a lot of people. Luckily, Girish was one of the first guys who really loved, Girish of Freshworks was the first guy who loved the product. He told, this product is good, I'll come in. And then he was also the one of the first guys who supported us with that structure. He told that a structure literally doesn't matter at this stage. We have to support the entrepreneurs. And this is the exact quote he told. We have to support the entrepreneurs or else the setup won't grow. And he put in money. So because of him, there were other entrepreneurs who backed us, like Mekin came in of Flipkart, there was Subrat Pani of Phonesis, all these people came in. And then it became quite easier for my first round. It was a 1.5 CR round. We had raised like, and this was out in the Your Story also, like 2.5 years back, I think. Then this money was enough to sow a product to the market, and there were some paying consumers from termsware.com. We grew nicely because we understood digital marketing and all. Then came the second task of how do you take the company to the next level. So we went out, the same set of angels. Luckily again those same set of angels led the round, and why did that happen was we have somehow inculcated this belief, and every month sort of we send out our company's financials and what we have done to our angels. This sort of creates a sort of transparency between us. Although it's a very tedious task, but this ensures that people who have trusted us and put money, they know what we are doing every month.
Wow. So you're communicating proactively with them.
Yes. What happens by this is they are updated with what the company is doing for the last 6, 7, 8 months. So whenever you go to ask money for the next round, they know that this company has been doing this and this is the future plan. So they lead the round. And seeing someone repeating the round makes it way easier for us to pitch to newer angels.
Yeah.
And also the good part is organically also you get lot more angels, because these guys would be spreading good words about us and they will be wearing our products. So what happens is whenever the next round opens up, organically this lead has been generated and they come and ask that can we participate in the round. So that makes the task, that has made the task for Terms a lot easier in raising angel money.
To buy the product, you have to go to terms.com.
So we have just launched a Terms app also recently. But the primary channel till date has been termsware.com. But Terms app is something we've launched. It's a great looking UX, so you should download and check it.
Okay.
Android guys only.
So Dinesh, I was asking you, how are you thinking about your business model?
So, most importantly, right, the margins are so low here, right? So margins are so low in terms of ticketing. You need to make sure you make money out of something else, right? So that's the important thing, and you need to also at the same time capture the market, right? You need to capture the market, and when I say when we do 25,000 seats a day, it's still 2% of the market share, and we are in a scaling phase where we need to scale it at a faster pace, like. In terms of ticketing, right, so we still have disadvantages when compared to a platform out there, that's IRCTC, right? So the pricing you cannot even make it equal to that, because there are certain percentage out of my revenue they also take. So to actually at least match their pricing, we need to make sure we actually make money out of some extra additional things, right? So there is one interesting feature that we launched this last month, something like even if you cancel any ticket like Tatkal also, you get free cancellation here, like instead of getting in there. And multiple, for this there is a premium that you need to pay, and we take a cut out of it, right? That 4% margin is enhanced to 6% now. So you get a leverage where you can try to reduce that other pricing, and that's how you need to make sure your revenue keeps changing, your margins keep increasing over a period of time, and your pricing should be at even if not lesser, it should be at par with all the platforms. But currently the disadvantage we have is slightly higher than this thing. So you have some percentage of users who complain on this, but as long as you are creating more value, that's still okay for them. And looking at the scale, right, when you're scaling, there will be multiple challenges that you have. Like one is a technology challenge, and one is like being a technology company, you cannot rely on people much, like you cannot increase the people, right? So you need to make sure it's lean, as much lean as possible. One of the important mistakes that we did is like, we initially when we launched booking 2 years ago, I mean like for the first 5 years, for 3 years it's just advertising model on Confirm Ticket, like you make money only on advertisement. So we were hardly making, I mean like the numbers are so low that it's almost like 5% of what we are making now, I would say. And
how much are you making now?
I mean, we make almost like 3 crore a month as of now, and that day is like 10 lakhs. Making 10 lakhs used to be a tough job with the advertisements at that point of time, and so I mean, you need to crack that business model. Like what is the best thing that customers are willing to pay? That's the important thing for us, and we tried with multiple things like sell him a bus, give him a hotel, all of these things, but nothing worked out. I want train ticket, I am coming to you, why are you selling me all of these things? Like, so I also read a book recently, like 22 Immutable Laws of Marketing. It's an amazing book which always emphasizes on something like you just focus your brand on a single thing and customers will be paying you at some point of time. I mean, when you scale, you get distracted and you tend to offer something else to the customer. Let's say if you are into train, let me sell flights. Maybe 1% will convert, maybe I make like 10% extra revenue, but that actually dilutes your brand. That actually makes, I mean, it reduces
Defocuses.
it defocuses.
Yeah. So did you raise money?
Yes, so we raised 2 rounds of funding. So one is an angel round way back in 2015.
And who were the angels?
So it was Praveen Agarwala, he was SVP of SAP Labs, and one of our friends in US, both of them did that for almost like, so 2014 is actually when we launched the website and all. So we were doing it part-time, and me, Sripad, I was the technology guy and he used to be analytics guy, and then he actually moved to US. So he was funding majority of the company, and I was writing all the code backend of the entire thing, all the algorithms and all. And we hired 10 remote interns. 10 interns actually working out of colleges like IIT Delhi, IIT Bombay, everyone, like 10 people working, and I am actually coordinating, coming after office in the night and coordinating them to build the UIs, like the website, app and all. So very proud of that these people, they actually, the first 6 months and all, they actually helped us launch the company to a good level.
So when did you raise your...
So 2015 July is, so we have been talking to this person Praveen from almost like 6 months. So Sripad,
how did you know him?
So Sripad used to post in every forum out there. So there is an article on Your Story also about us before this round of funding, and this guy came to know about us through articles, and Sripad used to post in every Facebook group, Bangalore Facebook group, everything on we are looking out for funding, anybody is there and all. So this person messaged on Facebook to Sripad that I want to fund you, and he looked at profile and said like maybe he just wanted to just do time pass. I don't know whether he'll do it or not, and we ignored actually first time, and Sripad was still looking out for some big companies like Saif Partners, all of these guys. He was just looking out for them, and so then the next week again he messaged, and then we asked for a meeting, and then he said, I'll put in, don't worry, I'll put in. So this was in December, he invested in July, this was in December. We were still in jobs, and he said like, you need to come out of your jobs, and you need to give me a plan, how do you make money, and all. We had zero money. It was all on users, that coming onto the platform, and daily 50,000 users were coming in, and he understood that the users base might be a valuable thing in future. That's how it all started. So then he started tracking our progress over 6 months. Then he wrote the check in July. So every month there used to be like increase in the user base, and we used to tell him like this is what happened.
And then you raised another round?
Yeah, in July we took this round, and then we hired like 5 people team, and then for 6 months we were like working on this. Still zero revenue, and the next round happened in January from Venture Catalyst in Mumbai. There is a group, Venture Catalyst. So they actually started their funding the first, I mean we are the first 4 companies to get invested from them. Now they are a top #1 investment group in India. And at that time, that investment also, it was like we were both of us were frustrated. Like we hardly have like 2 months cash left from the first round of funding, and we were not making any money. And users are coming in. So we were in a 1 BHK, and 5 people were there. So we went to we were talking to every angel investor out there. Nobody was understanding. Nobody was like, everybody was like, I think whatever you are doing might not be legal. There's just a gray area. We don't know, right? So that's one thing where me and Sripad were attending multiple conferences to see if we can get connected to something. And in one fine day, what happened is like we got an invite from one of the NASSCOM events, and that there is an investor connect that is happening. You need to come. Then in December, end of December, that's what happened. And both of us went there. So at the entrance, they asked us like, you need to pay 4,000 each. At that time, we actually thought only one of us will go because we hardly have any cash left. Why should we actually spend on this? And one of the guys from inside, the organizer, called Sripad and said like, where are you guys? The event is about to start. And we were still thinking, still discussing like who will go inside and who will go back to office. And he came out, he said like, I think it's okay, I'll manage them. And he talked to them, and we didn't pay for anyone. We went inside. And that's where we met Anirudh and Apurva. Both of them are from Venture Catalyst, and now Anirudh owns his own VC firm, and Apurva Sharma is heading this Venture Catalyst. So both of them actually liked the idea, and they were like, it's going to be, they are the ones who backed OYO Rooms in the beginning, and so they liked the idea. They said like, we will do it, but they wanted us to come to Mumbai and pitch to their investors.
That also required money.
Yeah. So we went in actually like a train on that. So that's how it all started. But they said they'll write the check, and within 15 days they are the quickest, I would say, like to do it. And within 15 days we got the money, and we moved to a good office. Again, we made a mistake. 6 months post that, we burnt all the money again. So there are certain things. Then post that, we did not raise the money, and we burnt money, and we realized that it's not the way. And investors helped us. These are the great guys, like who are the initial investors, and angels helped us a lot in streamlining us. Like both of us, not from a family business background or anything, we don't know how do we run, and we are the first time we are doing all of this stuff.
Yeah, all
right?
of us make the mistake. Everyone has made the mistakes.
Yes. So these guys guided us like make it more asset light, completely make sure you make money, and then we experimented with multiple things, and we made at least money in the next 1 year, so that at least we sustain. So for 2 years we sustained and tried multiple business models, and then we had a partnership with Railways, and that's how it all started. And now it's a good profitable company, I would say.
Dinesh, tell me about the scale.
We raised the Series B middle of last year, 2019. So when we raised the Series A 5 million is 2017, Shraddha. So we were doing about $6 million annualized, which is about 40 CR in Malaysia only, and partly in Thailand, right? So the investor said, okay, you guys are doing pretty good. Why don't you expand further, right? They were all for pro expansion. So we launched Thailand. So from Malaysia, then we went into Thailand, grew Thailand, ran that for another year. And then we said, okay, we need to enter a big market because Malaysia and Thailand both are relatively small, right? And me being from India, and I started my career in Gati, right? So I'm from this industry, and I said, I convinced my partners that let's go to India, right? I mean, the market here it's a $180 billion industry, whereas Malaysia and Thailand together are $20 billion, right? It's kind of a no-brainer to come here. So we launched in India 2018 September, and the growth here has been phenomenal, right? So we went from about 8 million annualized to today we do about $60 million annualized revenue. Wow. So because investors saw that phenomenal growth, they said, look guys, we're going to give you more money. We want you to keep growing. So the same investor from the Series A said, we'll triple our investment. So the first round was for 5 million, and then the Series B, they said, here you go, take 20 million. and continue growing this platform, right? So that was middle of last year that we closed the $20 million round, and that's going into expanding our current markets, which is Malaysia, Thailand, India, and we just launched in Philippines 3 weeks ago. So as of today, we're present in 5 markets. And you made a very good point about being lean. Across 5 countries, we only have 120 employees. And we just turned profitable in India, and we're very close to turning profitable in Malaysia as well. And I told this to Vishal in my interview, given that we come from a background of running companies and our investor strategic, he was very clear that you will not buy business, right? So we never go and, for example, go to Coke and say, I'll reduce rates by 20%, give me the volume. Because for us, that's just digging a pit for yourself. Whatever we do, try to do at a profit. There has to be some profitability. Stay very lean. 120 employees in 5 countries is not too much. And the business continues to grow, right? The 60 million annualized today was about 20 million 6 months ago, right? So in the last 6 months again, because now we've reached an inflection point of scale where it's not only Malaysia, not only Thailand, not only Singapore, not only India, but now we have 4 countries generating revenue. So the growth is compounded and exponential from now on, right?
Did you put some processes and practices in place which helped you accelerate your scale?
Yeah, absolutely. I think starting in a small market actually has been a blessing for us because we kind of copy-pasted the Malaysia model in the other countries we went to, right? So we figured out that any new city or area that you launch, you need about 2 employees, one on the demand side, one on the supply side, right? Just start very lean and let that supply come, let a couple of clients come, and then you scale it up from there. The other thing we are very particular about is not hiring many people. And how do you not hire? You need to have processes and technology, right? Because when you're doing about $60 million in revenue, you need to have a solid back-end applications to take care of all that volume, right? You can't have we run it on an Excel file. So a lot of our tech is not only external facing, but also internal facing that allows our back-end teams to kind of manage this entire volume in a systematic way, respond to escalations. The finance module is built in. So when we need to pay our vendors, they upload an invoice and then automatically there's a bank-to-bank interface built in where they get paid. The previous gentleman said that I'm an engineer too, so the bias is to hire engineers. So we have a lot of engineers in our team as well. So there's more process-driven thinking, I feel, that really helps us kind of keep costs down and drive.
How do you still continue to have
competition already does discount. It's just that we decided not to copy that. They continue to discount, and we said, I don't mind doing 60 million at, say, 8%, or rather the other option is to 200 million at negative 2% or 0%, right? We've been very clear that we don't mind doing, it's still very good revenue, but we are not in a race on GMV because we're not VC funded, right? So I think that's one advantage of having a strategic investor. Even their focus for us is turn profitable, right? We're not worried so much on scale. So coming back to the competition, the market's huge, Shraddha. I mean, India, the top guy has less than 1% market share. Nobody has more than 1%. So I think there's enough room for about, I would say, 3 players in each country, and we're quite confident we'll be top 3. Our intention is not to be number 1 in revenue. That's never been our intention. We want to be in the top 3 and do things profitably. And the second thing I'd say that is there's more competition in the last mile space, right? So the guys doing your, delivering your, hair dryer or your clothes to the house. What we do is the first mile space, right? So this becomes from ports, warehouses, etc. There's less competition there, and there's competition. You've got to be very sophisticated in your process and your technology to survive and grow. A lot of companies have come and gone. But not many have been able to scale, and let alone in one market. We're now in 5 countries, and I don't think there's any other startup right now that's present in 5 countries at the same time in this
and in
industry.
such a short while, 2016 you
started.
started.
Yeah, it's been 3.5 years. We've been quite lucky with our growth, and again, the investor has been very helpful because given that they are from the industry, we kind of piggyback on them to launch a new market. We get to use their offices, we get to use their infrastructure. It kind of gives us the start, right? And then from there, you still need to build. But yeah, I think that's one part we're most proud of, that in 3.5 years, we are now in 5 countries and growing quite well.
When you think of scale, what are some of the 2-3 things that you will be doing to build scale?
So one of the things is we have a very strong R&D team. We invest a lot there. In fact, one of our angels is Dr. Murli Sastry, who who is a very senior professor in nanotechnology in India, headed CSIR labs and all that. What it helps us is we always stay with the latest technology and we keep on innovating. So that is one of the first things, because in a very crowded market like lifestyle or fashion, you have to have a differentiated product for creating a community of users who stick to or love your product. And definitely design plays a big role, fit plays a big role and all that, but it's like we call like the cert is sort of an hardware. This is the iPhone, you can say. But the technology in it is a software which makes you use the product again and again. So the software is what we work a lot by putting money in R&D, because that's our product team, you can say. So that is the first part. The second part, obviously, when you are scaling is how do you manage the distribution? Because distribution needs a lot of working capital in the form of goods to be distributed across different distribution points. So we are working on sort of new sorts of financing, revenue-based financing, debt-based financing to expand there, because equity financing may not be the right way to expand the distribution. Where we use the equity money is primarily on the core, which is design, brand and our R&D. Distribution needs some sort of different financing, which we are exploring now with a lot of people, with a lot of new startups in India. So the catch is, being an engineer, you always tend to be biased to hire engineers. So that was one thing which I knew is one of our weaknesses. So we were very clear we have to hire people for R&D, which needs a different set of hiring process. You need software developers, which is very different. You need designers who have to be treated very differently. And you need supply chain guys who have to go to the factories and get the products out at the right time, right price, right quality and all that. So this ensures that you are always on the lookout for the best people, because I am not the best guy to understand supply chain. I am not the best guy to understand design, that you know very well. I am not the best guy to understand chemical R&D. So you need to find the best people at your stage, and that needs a lot of interaction with different people. So everywhere you go, we try to find if there is someone really, really good who can join us. Second part is having a good set of angels and all also helps you to open up doors, because when you get the best guy also, the best guy has to sacrifice a lot in his salary, in his lifestyle and join us, because we are very small for him. So having such good super angels on board who have built companies at a very large and seen companies scale gives these people the confidence that these guys are doing something good.
How many rejected you to get to them?
Oh, how many rejects? So I think so the good part is a lot of people who have rejected in the round 1, round 2 have come back in round 3. So it's like, I don't know how many would have rejected us. The good part is how many rejected and we got them back is something we are proud of.
You have a strategic investor. Tomorrow, what is the exit scenario?
A great question, and they're very open to this, that they've helped us up to here, but from now on, where the big checks come in, they may not be the ideal partner, right? So they're very keen to us talking to VCs and private equity.
Oh, they're okay with that?
They're okay with that, yeah. I mean, they want to be on the cap table, so they're not looking for an exit. The exit might come in 5 years, 10 years, who knows, right? And I don't think any of us are worried about the exit, because for now, it's just about growing it, right? I mean, the exit's only two. You either get acquired or you go IPO, right? I mean, personally, me, I would love to grow this company to a point where you take it to an IPO and then continue growing it rather than sell out. And also, the more you grow, the lesser are your acquisition options, right? Because there's very few companies who can acquire a company at scale, right? So then, that's less obvious, but who knows? But it's not something we're thinking of, but our existing investors are very comfortable with any other investors.
Easy, EZYHAUL. How did you guys come up with the name?
So Raymond, my partner, came up with that. So HAUL, HAUL is a short form of haulage, which is a term in industry for transportation, right? And easy is easy, right? So we just want to make haulage easier. So it's a play on those two words, and we call it Easy Haul.
And how did you, three of you, come together?
We're all colleagues. So another advice for budding entrepreneurs is try to find people you enjoy working with. It's tough to meet somebody in the pub and say, let's start a company tomorrow. Most of the time it wouldn't work. So Raymond was my boss actually at one point when I was in the US. And then Nikki was a third colleague. So all three of us were colleagues. And then as fate would have it, in 2016, the company we were working for was getting acquired by this Danish company, right? So we were kind of, in a way, forced to make this move. I mean, we could have just applied for the jobs, but at that point we said, look, rather than applying for another job, why don't we use our experience and do something out of this scenario, right? So like they say, when life gives you lemons, you try to make lemonade out of it.
What can we expect from your ventures?
We are focusing on profitability, so hopefully be profitable in all our countries. And number two, expand it across all 6 markets that we have on our trajectory. So that's Indonesia and Philippines included, right? The second thing is, and I don't say this just for this interview, is that the purpose of our business is not just to do business, right? So I think we've got to, each of us, give back in whatever way we can. So we in India partner with a couple of NGOs. We try to encourage our people also to volunteer, donate wherever we can. So hopefully we have a bigger footprint in giving back in a year's time, and probably partnering and helping with at least 5 to 10 NGOs across these markets that we operate in.
This year we might clock almost like 20-21 crore in net revenue, and we would definitely want it to be 80 to 100 crore next year. That's a big target, but we set it ourselves, so make sure let's push ourselves to this thing. Growing from 0.1% to 1% is slightly easier than growing from 1 to 2% actually. So as you scale, there are, I mean, like, even the user acquisition cost will be pretty high, and you need to reach out to that market which is still yet to transact. Or proudly I would say, like, the daily 2,000 to 3,000 users on Confirm Ticket are transacting for the first time in their life. They are booking train ticket for the first time in their life, coming back to the counter. From the counter, they used to go to the counter and book train tickets, and then now they are transacting on the platform. So technology wise, we will be at a stage where I mean, we are still not at the stage where my mom can book a train ticket on Confirm Ticket yet. So we definitely want that at the end of the year. By the end of the year, that has to happen. We tried something, but still only people can navigate only to the 10% of the journey yet. But still there is a lot of improvement to do. That's the technology wise we are looking at, and in terms of business, as I explained, like 80 to 100 crore is what we are targeting.
What are some of the things that stand out in terms of learnings?
You need to make sure, for at least for the team, you should be transparent, as much transparent as possible. And if things are not working out, you should actually push them forward, saying like, there is a day when it will work out. And all of us have seen these cycles. Like in 1 year it might be a low, next year there is always a day. But do not give up. That's the most important thing I want to advise everyone. Like, do not give up. Like definitely you got to try something out. I mean, people say like fail fast, like and all, but it's not that. Like, I mean, if you you should not fail actually. Like, if you're failing, that means you are not getting another chance actually, right? And you might not even be. I mean, it's okay. I mean, some people might disagree, but I would always say like, wait for some time. You can actually wait and see. I mean, it's not fail fast, again try second idea, third idea, fourth idea. It's not like that. Like you've started the first idea for something, right? You know that at the beginning of the you would have thought something that I would take it to this level, right? Have you achieved that or not, right? You should make sure you actually reach that point, and before that, giving up is a bad thing. Like, I mean, like that's the worst thing I would say. And when we started Confirm Ticket, right, we thought we will hit 1 lakh users a day and we'll be like millionaires, right? Now we have 4 lakh users using it every day. We are still, it's just a greed that, I mean, now we want like 10 lakh users using it every day. Yeah, the goalpost keeps changing. So at that time you have a lesser aim during the beginning, right? We always thought we never thought it's going to be such big company or anything. We always thought like, just like Facebook, he just wanted to build his website. So for the people, like we also thought like, let people just use it for this waitlist prediction. We were part-time, we thought like, let them use it. We don't know like how big whether it will be a business or not, let them use it for free. Let them use it, that's what we thought. It's creating a lot of value, right? If you're creating value, then why not make business out of it? Both are interconnected. Yeah. You create more value and the business will automatically come in. And most importantly, for any technological innovation, what happens is like there is a cycle, 3 years to 4 years, and after that, it's no longer an innovation, right? If somebody is inventing a touchscreen phone, initially it's an innovation, but after 3 years, everybody copies it. It's not an innovation after that, right? Same with us also, right? We started with waitlist prediction. We are the first ones to launch. In 3 years, there are multiple platforms which has that. you need to again pick the next thing. Then we launched the alternative options. Like now the inventory that you see on Confirm Ticket is 20% higher than any other platform. So people getting on Confirm Ticket gets more tickets than any other platform. It's less like secret. You don't tell anyone I have a train ticket. You don't know who get it like. So that again there will be a cyclical thing. Now we're working on voice platform. What it does is like people can actually using voice in any language they can actually transact, right? So things are moving in that direction where the interfaces are changing. Like it might be a case where it might sound like 5 years or 10 years down the line, everybody's wearing those Apple devices, right? Eventually it might become just that might be an interface saying people just tap and say, I want a train ticket to Delhi, just book for me. And we should be ready for any such things, right? That's how the technology also you need to scale. You need to have great people to work on future things. That's the important thing. You need to focus on R&D. You need to always push your team to focus on things, right? Hire great team. That's the important thing. For us, actually, initial 10 people they came in at half the salary of what they were making. That's the important thing that I would always say. Like these guys sacrificed something, right? Because they believed in us that I will make out this money in future. So you need to have that conviction. You need to convince as a co-founder. You need to make sure you convince people to do such things, right? You need to convince them that there is always light at the end, right? So yeah, we always believe that at the end everything will come into picture. So if something is happening, as Steve Jobs says, like you can actually connect the dots when you cannot connect at this point of time, but maybe after 10 years you might come back and say that VC, he did not fund me, and that's good thing. On that day I would have burned that money or something. Or that day we instead of doing that, we did this and that actually worked out. I mean, you can actually connect the dots. So that's important thing. It's always like that's how a life story or a company journey also actually begins.
Yeah, thank you so much. Thanks a lot.